We begin in Washington, D.C., where lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working to enact policies and programs that align with the Biden administration's agenda. One issue that's top of mind is how changes to federal tax policy can impact family-owned agricultural businesses. Recently, Ncba Vice President and South Dakota rancher Todd Wilkinson testified before the U.S. House Agriculture Committee about a number of topics, including taxes. Wilkinson explained that any tax proposal that makes it more difficult to pass an operation down to future generations would be devastating to the farming and ranching community.
Secretary Vilsack's statement that the administration's proposals on taxes is not going to have an impact on other than 2% is pure bunk. You cannot take away stepped-up basis and increase the federal estate tax. Sure, give $1 million exemption. That doesn't cut it, because farmers and ranchers have their assets in land, cattle, and machinery. They don't have it in cash. We don't have cash like that in the bank. So when we have to pass it on to the next generation, and if my son is forced to pay tax to continue our operation just for me to get it from one point to the next point, that's ridiculous. And when he buys out his sisters in that operation, if he has to pay a capital gains tax on it, we're simply not going to be able to stay in operation. The other issue is, we talk about, there's an exception to this, an exception to that. I have a client right now he doesn't have a son, he has a stepson, and all those exceptions don't work with the stepson. So his operation, and he's just passed away, is going to be directly impacted if we let these tax proposals come to fruition.
Here to talk more about Ncba's efforts is Ncba CEO Colin Woodall. Colin, taxes were not the only reason that Todd Wilkinson was testifying on Capitol Hill. Tell us what else he was discussing.
So Todd's primary focus was talking about the cattle markets, and more importantly, what Ncba is doing in regards to the cattle markets. It's something that's been on the minds of our cattle producers and members for years now, but really came to a head during the pandemic, when we saw the backlog of cattle start to build up because of the lack of workers in the packing plants, and the bottom fell out of the market because of that. And ever since then, we have been trying to find ways to get the leverage back into the hands of producers. And that's what Todd was trying to convey, what we need to see in order to be able to get that opportunity for producers to remain profitable. And anytime we can have a producer sitting in front of Congress delivering that message, it really helps our overall effort.
Yeah, and obviously cattle markets are things that are being cussed and discussed all across the country right now. You know that, and I know that. There's a level of divisiveness within the industry, pointing fingers, trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. How is Ncba continuing to engage on this issue to find the right path forward?
This truly has been a priority for us, and we were engaging on many different levels. Just recently, we were able to make sure that mandatory price reporting, what's also called livestock mandatory reporting, was reauthorized. It's a key component to make sure that we have access to information to help us see what's going on in the marketplace. But of course, that's not enough. We need to make sure we continue to focus on price discovery. And one of the things that our committee leaders and the working group that we put together decided to do was to try to work on more cash trade. And we have our 75% program that a lot of people are familiar with that's currently in place, and we are measuring against that. And we have seen more cash trade because of it. So we've been very successful in that. But we still have to make sure that we're addressing packing capacity. That's making sure that we have guest worker programs to get workers into these packing plants, and also to work with USDA on their current proposal to try to invest $500 million in new or expanded capacity for small and local plants.
And so why is it important, as we talk about these issues, to have producers who are willing, as Todd was, to go to Congress and to get involved in that policy-making process?
One of the benefits of membership of Ncba is the fact that you have a full-time team in Washington, D.C. working a lot of times 24/7 on issues of concern. But it always makes a huge difference and raises the stakes to some extent when somebody who's actually stepping into a polling booth and voting either for or against one of those members of Congress shows up to tell not only their firsthand story, but why they as a producer are a part of this association.
Another key topic right now is sustainability. We talk a lot about it on this show and with you in the past, but specifically today I'd like to ask, what is Ncba doing to educate lawmakers about this topic?
We have a great opportunity to tie sustainability into every single issue we're working on in Washington, D.C. Let's tie it back into taxes. We've spent a lot of time here over the past several months working on the tax proposals, trying to protect things such as the step up in basis. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is to talk about how tax policy determines whether or not producers can stay on the land and pass the land to the next generation. That has a direct impact on keeping that grazing land, that open space, working for us, working to develop not only good soils, but what it does to sequester carbon, and of course the benefit of our cattle being able to put high quality protein on the table. That resonates from the sustainability angle back to members of Congress and to the administration. So that sustainability message is intertwined into every issue we're working on right now.
It's critically important. On to another topic. There was a big announcement last month that said the Beef It's What's for Dinner is going to return to Daytona 300 in February, and we're going to have the Beef It's What's for Dinner Daytona 300 for the second year in a row. Why is that such a valuable event for us?
You know, it's valuable for several different reasons. First of all, it's that continued brand recognition of Beef It's What's for Dinner. We were amazed at the amount of feedback that we received last year for our inaugural Beef It's What's for Dinner 300. And to be able to keep that logo, to have that logo on the pace car, on the track, on television, just reinforces what is already a very successful campaign. Right now, we know that almost 70% of Americans recognize Beef It's What's for Dinner, and this helps increase that by being on broadcast television. But we also have to remember that even though a lot of the individuals watching this race are beef eaters, we need beef eaters to eat even one more beef meal, so that way we can continue to sell as much product as possible. So it's about taking care of our base, getting them to eat more, talking about the Beef It's What's for Dinner brand, and ultimately showing the effectiveness of the checkoff.
And speaking of eating more beef, holidays are coming up. A great time to consume beef, great time to promote beef. What all are you promoting or planning to do during the holiday season this year?
Well, we are drawing the line that turkey is no longer the premier protein for the holidays.
That's good.
It's beef. It's beef for Thanksgiving. It's beef for Christmas.
I like that.
And we are going to push that throughout our holiday campaign, which we are proud to be back on the Hallmark Channel this year. A lot of people don't realize that between Halloween and Christmas, the Hallmark Channel is one of the most watched networks in this country.
I believe
so
that.
that's the place to be able to tell our story, to bring forward the emotion of families sitting around the table and eating a high quality beef meal. So we're excited about those coming up. So everybody needs to tune into the Hallmark Channel and see Beef It's What's for Dinner and our holiday campaign.
We've got our prime ribs in the freezer ready to roll ourselves. Thanks for coming today, Colin, and thank you for everything you and your staff are doing.
Thank you, Kevin.